What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a brand new video. Now, today we are going to be breaking down Infernal Chasm by Doom Dark Ages. We're back on the Doom Dark Ages grind, the official soundtrack. Without further ado, let's get into today's video. I have to pause it, and I don't care if I need to learn about. Pausing at the correct time. There's no correct time to pause when there's great music on. You just have to deal with it. Um, 2 minutes and 52 seconds into this, and I loved how they threw us off for a loop there. I almost was thinking like this 6 minutes and 43 of this track. Is it just going to be a long kind of like composition of just strings and kind of transitions with rising risers and whooshes and booms and that epicness of a soundtrack then. But the soundtrack in the beginning was just with the vocalization, just kept on going higher with that. Started off low, very very thin, very minimalistic, kind of almost like a mystery, almost like sound design. Like the first couple of seconds of this track, you had a lot of like winds and kind of sound design that really set the stage. It kind of set the tone through sound that you can almost imagine being in hell or whatever it may be. But I also love how like the inspiration of this is like, rock music mixed in with a little bit of metal, but mainly rock, and how if you look through history, rock was always used as a symbol of like satanic and cults and horror, and it's still used to this day. But I really like that Doom has always incorporated that into its theme, into its soundtrack. You can almost guarantee when there's a Doom game, there's like a piece of like heavy metal or rock or proper just rock and roll, if you know what I mean. Um, so I love that we get that in this. Now, I haven't listened to the whole entire Doom the Dark Ages soundtrack. I think I've reacted to three. I think this would be my third reaction. And I want to do more. So if there's a reaction in that you want me to do in terms of the Doom the Dark Ages, post down in the comments down below. But I love the strings. I love the kind of the double bass. You got all of the percussion, the metal, the rock going on, with the guitars and all of this type of stuff, right? But just in that is you hear the do do do, like just a constant, just pulsating bass that's just so nasty, and all of this is, I think, does accompany the visual element, if you know what I mean. And I think with this reaction, because it's going to be a long reaction, I think I'm just going to pause it when I hear something nice and talk about it and break it down to the best of my ability, instead of, because I've been listening to a lot of shorter soundtracks of late, just play it out, go back, and break it down that way. So let's continue. That transition. That's what I'm talking about with this transition. Let's break this transition down. So we've just come out of, oh my god, there's two more replay. We've just come out of whole, like a chorus, and if you will, we've come out of a chorus, and we're building this back up. We're going into this next segment of this soundtrack, right? We're going into like Act 2 or Act 3 or whatever. It needs that space because the audience needs to anticipate this. And what I mean by this is we need that chance to then go back into it, because ultimately you want your head rock and rolling, you know. So how they do this is that they leave it. They just allow that time for these instruments or these musical notes just to space out in terms of the mix, just play out. Then we get this massive long, but it goes so high that it almost sounds just like a kind of a string screech, like an annoying sound. Then we hear like a little click of a gun or a sound. We just like, then it goes back in. Listen to the setup of this transition. Also, it does help by the fact of we have bass. So that is a symbolism of the heartbeat. Which ultimately, because it's a familiar kind of twos pattern, because the heartbeat goes do 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 do. It does it twice instead of do. It goes do do. So that is the symbolism of the heartbeat. And then it intensifies as along with the riser as well. also like there's also a like a do 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 kind of sound to it, which is like you've got all of the instruments, all the percussion, all of the guitars, all of the kind of the rockness going on, but then there's a do do, which is just like that. It's like to me, it means two things. That moment in the game where you're hitting someone and you got the punches like bang 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 bang, but then also it's that like the part where it's just knocking home just the baseness of it, just for you to just keep on hitting your head like this, if you know what I mean. I look silly, but to me, that's what it is. Just love that, like that electric guitar. Then, oh, just that little kind of note that's different. You get that on compositions you're making, all of it's the same, but you would have like a viola or a violin too, or maybe a cello, or just an instrument that goes against it, which is the standout. So you got the like it just, it stands out, but it sounds so good. See the change then? You hear the change? We're building to something. Maybe we're building back to kind of the chorus, but I would say this is kind of like a backdrop, like percussion moment. Dum 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 dum. We go from the loudness to the dum 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 dum. But even when they were building to the dum 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 dum, we just get some quiet, just a kind of kind of an instrument playing, but then we have like a little kind of cowbell or hi-hat going chim 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 dum 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 dum. We're building to something here. We're maybe not building to something. I don't think I need to add any context to this. You know, like, let's put it into perspective. I break down game soundtracks. Well, I break down all sorts of soundtracks, but mainly, if you were to go through my channel, it's a lot of game soundtracks, and that's fine. I hopefully one day I aspire to create something like this, for a game. But in 2025, we've had so much great soundtracks for video games. Expedition 33, fantastic. South by Midnight, fantastic. Doom the Dark Ages, fantastic. In terms of like what's going to like win at the Game Awards, for like best game soundtrack, it's going to be. I think this could potentially be like, and I'm only judging like not the game, the soundtrack. I don't think people are going to be walking away from that very happy, because if you're Doom, a massive Doom fan, but you don't care about any of the other games, you're going to be happy if this wins. But anyway, I, what I really want to talk about is, I think it's this part here. Number one, how suddenly they do stop. So they don't load the instruments. They have kind of like an echo and reverb on that track, and it's just a massive, just quick. There's no kind of slowing like earlier in this track how they allowed the instruments to breathe. There's none of that in here. Then we then we almost like get a honestly a sound design again, just like the beginning of the track, copying that over. I think this, to me, I think this would probably be like the third act. The synth, right? But then we also get like, doom, like a synth bass sound, right? Then we have the, so they're starting with that, where we're starting that groundwork up again. We're building back into this tension, building the rising themes of Doom. But then there's just a kind of just a constant swooping synth, almost sounds dystopian at this point, not very satanic or hellish. Just building this kind of dystopian world. You know, building that back up. And then, we get the synths. We have the synths come in, then we have strings. But I think it's a staccato. Dun, 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 dun. Staccato or pizzicato type of uh, 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 use of the violins or the strings then. Yeah, so dun 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 dun, kind of that. But we had like a kind of honestly like a little bit of foley sound effects going on, the little kind of chasm, kind of just placed onto that then. But this type of like violin technique, I would say it's a technique, either staccato or pizzicato, those type of like one pluck type of uh vibe that you're going for on a string. It almost does feel that like those uses tend to be like in building the tension back up. Vocals come back in. So we get like the one hits again. Dun, dun. Then we get the, the female vocals hitting that higher octaves. Then we're going to get into the nasty. Then just a cut building. It's just all building, and that's something that composers, when we're us aspiring composers, when we're building the rises and the tension, that's what we're supposed to be doing, building it back up because it becomes more meaningful. And ultimately, that's what I wanted to break down. There was two that groundwork. Then we have another like kind of like a sound that drives past, from right to left. Then they allow it to breathe with just the dum dum dum, with the female vocals going higher and higher and higher. And then we get into this drop beat, the that type of beat, right? Ladies and gentlemen, this has been an absolutely pleasure to break down, to react to. It's an absolutely fantastic soundtrack, or track in the soundtrack. This has been my reaction to Doom the Dark Ages Infernal Chasm. If you got any more recommendations of Doom, post down in the comments down below. If you want me to react to a game soundtrack as well that you would like me to do, make sure you post that in the comments down below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. My goal is, hopefully, it's not very, very ambitious, but I feel like I can achieve it. 200 subscribers by the end of the year. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on your way out. Make sure you leave a like, share it, do all the good stuff. Until my next video, ladies and gentlemen, bye-bye.